Welcome back to The Line. Last week in the Santa Fe New Mexican reported that the city's mayor, Alan Weber, backtracked on his offer for Santa Fe to house asylum seekers crossing the U.S. border with Mexico, saying essentially that our hearts were overruled by our heads. When the original offer was made, Mr. Weber said Santa Fe was better equipped to help in other ways, such as raising money and other donations, and sending volunteers to points south, such as Albuquerque, who is taking in asylum seekers. This week, city and state officials announced that Expo New Mexico would provide temporary housing to those asylum seekers. They'll be staying in existing dorms at Albuquerque State Fairgrounds for just a day or so before they move on to be with their host families. And Julianne, I'm on this quote about the mayor saying we're using our heads instead of our hearts on this one. Just curious what Gandhi, King, others who believe in justice would have thought of that idea that you lead with your head and not your heart. Is he being consistent about being an asylum-seeking city?
I think that the reason why he said what he said initially was because he agrees with those leaders who you named.
Okay.
I think his initial impulse was...
But is he willing to roll up his sleeve and prove it? Or is he...
Well, what I was going to say is that I think his initial impulse was, yes, we want to help everybody who needs help, and the city wants to stand by its values in terms of not allowing city police to enforce federal immigration law.
Right.
I think that's his effort to be consistent with his previous statements. I think, though, in reality, there is not an infrastructure in place necessarily, and there are things that, as the mayor of Santa Fe, he needs to solve before he...
Let me challenge you on that. Is there not a convention center in Santa Fe? Is there not big, large buildings that have bathrooms and not temp kitchens, but little kitchens and things?
Sure.
Yeah.
To be the devil's advocate, what about all the people who are living on the streets in Santa Fe and in Albuquerque today?
Sure.
Why don't we open the Expo New Mexico to all of those people? Why don't we open the convention center? There are grocery stores and office buildings that are empty, that have electricity, that we should be housing people who can't find houses. Totally on board with all of that. But I think that this decision, that the mayor spoke about something before he really did his research and before he really made a plan is what, I think the focus should be on.
Okay.
His head, his heart, which came first, does that really matter?
I think you're right, because I work closely, not on this issue, on a different one, with the Office of Equity and Inclusion here in Albuquerque, and they've been handling this for the city.
Right.
Transportation is a big thing, and sometimes they have only an hour or two notice when the paperwork comes through and the people need to get on the bus or get on the plane occasionally and go wherever their next stop is.
Right.
If they're in Santa Fe, they have to get them down to Albuquerque.
Right.
There is an infrastructure problem here.
Okay.
So I agree with you. I think that Alan Weber's heart is in the right place. He really spoke before he thought all of that through.
Which is not an uncommon thing to happen with this mayor, I just want to say.
Good point there. But you would think asylum seekers have been coming here for a while now, Martha.
Yeah.
I would have expected that the mayor of this city, meaning Santa Fe, would have been either preparing for this eventuality some months, weeks and months ago, and it sounds like he's just now trying to consider how to do this. It just something seems a little behind here.
Well, I wonder too if there's been a shift in policy down at the border.
Right.
Because there was no talk of bringing any of these people to Santa Fe earlier.
Gotcha.
Then Trump gets on the sanctuary city deal.
Right.
Now, Santa Fe is not officially a sanctuary city, but it is what they call a welcoming community, which is just stopping short.
Right.
So I wonder if even the idea of sending them to Santa Fe rather than a main transportation hub where they could move on to the next stop is something new, and maybe he only needed to face that recently.
Senator Boitano, are we talking good decision-making, or is this hypocrisy in your view?
Well, I admire the mayor for doing what he did. And I mean, the question is, what's this going to look like moving forward? Even the great liberal political thinker Cher, made the point, Julianne made, are we taking care of our own? I was reading a press release from last week, border control, 100,000 illegal immigrants last month, okay? Last year was 404,000. They have 12,000 asylum seekers in custody right now. Dangerous level 6,000. Okay, if that's what's happening now, what's going to happen in the future? And just like cause and effect, I mean, we need to really take a look at the cause of this problem, a terribly, terribly broken immigration system. We need to put together a bipartisan group of congressmen, take the wall and the other poison pill amnesty off the table, give them unilateral authority to fix the immigration system. And once we fix the immigration system, we can really answer questions like how many immigrants can we accommodate, how many asylum seekers can we accommodate, answer those questions, look at the money, look at the resources, and that's the solution to the macro problem we're facing.
Senator Snyder, you know, the idea that, again, it's Santa Fe, I'm still in this idea that, you know, it's a city that's put its heart out there for years about this issue, for years. I would have thought that this mayor in this city would have been the first to step forward and say, you know what, we're going to help solve this problem, but unfortunately they're going to be the last. So I ask again, does that surprise you that they're taking this angle, or?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't. I think that he looked at the resources that he has in his community. And even though we have set his hearts in the right place,
Sure.
is he said, in my estimation, in evaluation of this whole situation, the best option for our city is to raise money to help others. We don't all have to go and hand out food at serving lines.
Right.
Some of us have to raise the money to buy the food
Right.
to have the serving line.
Right.
I have to tell you though, if I may, I am completely and totally outraged about this whole situation.
Sure.
I look at it and it's not that the refugees don't need help. That's not the issue. But I look at this and I go, how many people did we have during the winter out on streets freezing to death when we had all this dormitory at the state fairgrounds? And they're not new buildings.
I hear you guys, but that's a different issue. That's a different issue. It
I
seems to
don't
me
see that it
we have a
is.
temporary situation where folks are needing some help. I appreciate Martha's point on the logistics. However, it just seems to me it's easy for Santa Fe to just write a check. That's like almost like a cliched response. And I would imagine
But we
people
have to
that
have
are
the check.
watching,
But we have to have the check.
we have to have the check, and folks are contributing. That's working out, but it just seems like Santa Fe has always put it out there that we're willing to do the extra step here. And it doesn't feel like that extra step's being willingly made here, in my view. Unless, Julianne, do you want to touch on that one too?
I was just going to say that I think it's important to note that the governor made a statement and used a phrase. She said that this was about local governments and nonprofits and individuals stepping into the breach.
Right.
And to what the senator said earlier, this is about the failure of the federal government to deal with this situation and, in fact, to follow the United States law about asylum seekers. And so to kind of say, like, Santa Fe, why aren't you solving this problem? I'm not sure why you're so
I'm not
fixated
saying
on
that.
that.
You know, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is certain places, communities, people put themselves out there as being, you would think, the first ones to step forward when things like this happen. And I'm not feeling that here. I understand where he's coming from, the mayor. That's not my issue here. It is a logistics problem. But we're working down here. We're opening our facilities here in Albuquerque. In Las Cruces, they're spending money, taxpayer money, to do this.
I don't
There
see
should
it.
be
I don't
something
see
a little
it as-
extra.
I
You're
don't
not
see it as the
asking
mayor
about-
being
you're not-
inactive, though.
You're not asking about Taos.
Right.
You know, you're not
Right.
asking about Gallup.
Right.
Farmington.
Right.
Rio Rancho.
Well, those
Yeah.
communities don't put themselves out there the
didn't
way
say they
Santa
were.
Fe does.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
I think maybe it's also
you know?
worth talking about the idea that Santa Fe puts itself out there. This
Yeah.
is not a universally accepted thing in Santa Fe. It is still a very
Fair enough.
polarizing
Controversial.
issue. And I think if the mayor is trying to get support from various corners on other initiatives he's working on, maybe he
Right.
did this as a sort of sacrifice or compromise. I'm not really sure he has.
Well, they
said
are
that.
hiring a
Last word there. Go ahead.
coordinator to coordinate not only money, but other resources
Right.
that are needed. Those things have to be got down here the same way that folks would if they were up there. So I don't think it's quite fair, Gene, to say he's the last one to do something.
Good enough. Fair enough there. That's all the time we have, but we took time this week to talk to people in Albuquerque who are coordinating volunteer responses to the migrants served. That conversation is up on New Mexico in Focus's Facebook page. Check it out.